The movie opens in a jungle, where a man flees through the trees from a knight who is pursuing him. The knight soon catches up and injures him with his sword. Moments later, the man is found in the middle of a desert. Before he loses his consciousness, he manages to utter one word: Castleguard. He is rushed to a hospital, but the doctors are unable to save him. X-rays reveal that many of his internal organs, veins, and bones are misaligned, leaving the medical team puzzled about the cause. Later, one physician hands the sheriff a locket discovered around the man's neck, which is the only clue to his identity. The locket bears the label of a research center, ITC Corporation, prompting the physician to contact the company. Shortly after, an employee from ITC arrives and identifies the deceased as Vincent Taub. He requests the body and all related reports. He is ordered to keep the incident under wraps, fearing it could damage the company's reputation. Elsewhere, archaeologist Professor Edward Johnston and his students, Kate Erickson, Josh Stern, Francois Dontel, and André Marek, are sponsored by ITC to excavate the ruins of the village of Castleguard in France near La Roquette Castle. This village was destroyed in 1357 during the Hundred Years' War as part of a significant battle. The hanging of Lady Claire, the sister of Arnaud de Serval, inspired the French to victory. Professor Edward's son, Chris, is more interested in Kate than in the excavation. However, his attention shifts when Marek uncovers a sarcophagus containing a French knight with a lopped ear, posed unusually while holding hands with his lady for all eternity. Professor Edwards suspects that ITC is hiding something, so he travels to their headquarters in New Mexico. A few days later, without any word from him, the team discovers a 600-year-old parchment pleading for help, along with one of the professor's bifocal lenses. Concerned, Chris contacts ITC to inquire about the incidents to his father, but instead, they ask them to come to the headquarters. In Mexico, the team meets ITC President Robert Doniger and Vice President Stephen Kramer. Robert explains that while developing teleportation technology, they locked onto a stable wormhole leading to Castleguard in 1357. Although Edward was invited to witness the past, he now needs to be rescued. This is why the team has been called in. While the team wants to learn more, Robert insists that the professor has been missing for 72 hours, and any further delay will make it harder to find him. Agreeing with him, the team is led by an ITC employee, Frank Gordon, who introduces them to two Marines who will accompany them on their journey to the past. After a brief discussion about who will go, Chris, Kate, Marek, and Francois are chosen, each with a specific purpose to save Edward. They all put on clothing from the past and are stripped of any modern technology. Instead, they are given pendant-shaped markers to use for their return. Before stepping onto a small platform, Robert warns them that they will experience intense pain during the time travel process. Once they are enclosed in the platform, the team starts to scream in agony as they are transported through time. Upon arriving in 1357, the team finds themselves in a river. As they scramble onto land, a young woman runs toward them, warning them to hide as English knights are chasing her. While everyone prepares to conceal themselves, the two Marines are killed while trying to protect the group. One of the Marines attempts to activate the marker after priming a grenade, but he is struck by two arrows and dies while activating it. When his body returns to the present, the grenade detonates, damaging the teleportation device. Meanwhile, Marek is pursued by the knights as he tries to shield Chris and Kate. He manages to hide under a bush, where he finds the young woman who had warned them to hide. As the knights search for Marek, one is shot by a Frenchman, distracting the others. Marek seizes the opportunity to take the sword from the fallen knight and arms himself. On the other side, Gordon, Francois, Chris, and Kate reunite. As they make their escape, they encounter Marek and the young woman. Together they head toward Castleguard. There they see the villagers bustling about and realize it is the day the Englishmen will destroy the village. Despite this, Gordon refuses to accept the historical outcome and urges everyone to follow him in search of Edward. In the present, with the device destroyed, Josh worries about his friends and shares his concerns with Robert. The team quickly begins to prepare another device to ensure the team can return back in time, but Stephen warns that their success now depends on the possibilities. Meanwhile, the remaining team in Castleguard, along with the young woman, is captured by the knights, although she manages to escape. They are brought in front of Lord Oliver Devon and his second-in-command, William de Keir. When Oliver mentions Edward, they are hopeful to rescue him. Merrick states that Edward is their master, who is unaware that his team is in the village. He explains that they are Scottish, except for Francois, who is there as their interpreter. However, Oliver mistakes Francois for a French spy and kills him on the spot. The rest of the team is imprisoned alongside Edward. Reunited, Edward shares his experience with them, explaining that when he tried to convince the English he was a scientist, they thought he was a spy. He was captured after promising Oliver that he could create Greek fire for them in exchange for his life. Merrick challenges Edward's reasoning, but soon realizes that without this deal, Edward would have been killed. Together, they brainstorm an escape plan. While looking out the window, Merrick spots the same woman they met in the woods, who has now been captured by the Knights despite her earlier escape. As they examine the hut where they are imprisoned, Kate discovers a hole in the roof and decides to climb up. The group is hesitant, but she insists she is the best climber, so they agree to let her go. Before she ascends, she kisses Chris, revealing her feelings for him. She then carefully climbs to the roof and moves to the other side to help her team. From the window, she attacks one of the Knights and frees her team to fight back. Although they regret having to kill, each member grabs a weapon and prepares to move forward. As they make their escape, Merrick chooses to split from the group to save the woman. Despite his teammates urging him to return, he goes back inside the hut to search for her. Just as he finds her, Dakir attacks him, but with the woman's help, they manage to escape. The team argues with Gordon about finding Merrick, but he insists that his only job was to locate the professor, which he has already done. He moves away from them, trying to activate the marker to return, but it does not work since they are unaware of the destruction of the teleportation device. Despite the team pressing the marker together, they cannot go back home, so they decide to move on. Meanwhile, Merrick and the woman travel through the water, getting to know each other. Merrick tries to flirt with her, but their conversation is interrupted by screams. They rush to the shore and are startled by French soldiers. As the soldiers take the woman, Merrick realizes she is Lady Claire. She reunites with her brother, Arnaud de Cerveau, who thanks Merrick for saving her. In return, Merrick asks for a horse and some weapons to return to Castleguard and find his team. Despite Arnaud and Claire urging him to stay safe, Merrick remains determined to leave. Before he departs, Lady Claire kisses Merrick, wishing him well on his journey. Back with the team, they hide in a small hut. Suddenly, Knights burst in to capture them. Chris and Kate manage to escape, but Professor Edward and Gordon are recaptured. The couple rushes to other houses, narrowly escaping as the Knights set the home on fire. They flee into the woods, hoping to reach La Roque Castle to find Edward. Kate warns Chris that even if they get there, Edward will not be able to defend himself against the guards. She suggests looking for a tunnel that leads to the castle, and Chris reluctantly agrees. Kate guides Chris to a monastery where they previously found a parchment pleading for help, along with one of the professor's bifocal lenses. There, they try to assist in turning the tide of the battle in favor of the French. They take the hint and start breaking down a wall, eventually discovering a tunnel. After finding the tunnel, Kate suggests that one of the older men fetch Arnaud de Cerveau and bring him to the monastery. On the other hand, English Knights launch an attack on Arnaud de Cerveau and Lady Claire, aiming to kill Arnaud. As the two sides clash in battle, Claire attempts to escape, but the Knights pursue her. Subsequently, in Castleguard, English soldiers are taking Professor Edward and Gordon away as they burn the village behind them. Merrick is soon captured as well and brought to the same place as Edward and Gordon. Dakir introduces himself to the team as William Decker, a former ITC employee who has used the teleportation device multiple times. He reveals that each use damaged his DNA and internal organs, leaving him in a dire situation. Dakir takes their markers and kills Gordon. He explains that one marker can take them all back, but they must stay alive and gather in a 30-square-foot area free of obstacles. Edward urges Dakir to press the marker so they can all return, but he refuses. Instead, they are taken to prepare the Greek fire as Edward had promised to Oliver. As both teams prepare for battle, Edward creates Greek fire that ignites upon contact with water and gives it to Oliver and his soldiers. Impressed by the results, Oliver allows Edward to gather as many resources as he needs to produce more. When the battle begins, English soldiers take down many opponents, forcing the French to retreat. Just then, the older man Kate had suggested to fetch Arnaud de Cerveau arrives and informs them about the tunnel. Arnaud de Cerveau accompanied by some of his men, heads to the monastery, while Chris and Kate struggle to find their way further in the tunnel. As Merrick and Professor Edward prepare the flammable liquid, Merrick sees Lady Claire about to be hanged to force Arnaud de Serval to surrender. Determined to save her, Merrick confronts Oliver, threatening to blow up their arsenal if they do not let her go. When Dakir refuses to release Claire, Merrick throws the fire into the arsenal, triggering a massive explosion. This blast not only frees Lady Claire but also opens the blocked tunnel, impressing Arnaud de Serval as Chris and Kate were trying to find a way forward. As the battle intensifies, Chris and Kate reunite with Edward, while Merrick rushes to rescue Lady Claire. He manages to free her, but Dakir attacks him. During their struggle, Merrick loses one of his ears, but he realizes that he is meant to be the knight from the sarcophagus, which gives him the strength to defeat Dakir. Simultaneously, Chris helps Arnaud defeat Oliver Devon. After killing Oliver, Chris, Kate, and Edward attempt to activate the marker to return home, but it does not work. Chris asks Merrick for his marker and urges him to come back with them. Merrick gives Chris the marker that Dakir had taken from him earlier. However, he chooses to stay behind, saying goodbye as he hurries to Lady Claire to assist the French in achieving victory and restoring history. Edward, Chris, and Kate hurry to the open field and attempt to activate the marker to return home. In the present day, Robert, Stephen, and Josh have completed the teleportation device, but it only works with 81% efficiency. Robert refuses to use it, claiming it is too dangerous and could leave them deformed. He tries to sabotage their efforts, fearing that if the students' stories become public, ITC will face significant financial losses. Stephen insists they must save the kids, who were unaware of the risks when they traveled to the past, but Robert still declines. Later, Joseph tells another ITC employee to activate the device. As the machine powers up, Robert rushes in to stop the teleportation, but ends up being sent back to 1357 without a marker, making it impossible for him to return. He arrives outside the castle just as a knight charges at him, presumably leading to his death. Moments later, Edward, Chris, and Kate arrive via the device. Josh is excited to see them, but quickly notices that their other two friends are missing and questions them. Days later, Edward and his team return to the ruins of Castleguard to re-examine the sarcophagus. Kate uncovers the same sarcophagus containing the French knight with a lopped ear that Merrick had found earlier. As they read the inscription, they learn that Merrick and Lady Claire enjoyed a prosperous life after the war and had 3 children named Christophe, Catherine, and Francois. This discovery brings them a sense of closure to their journey, connecting the past to their present.